Tēnā koutou katoa. No mai, kai mai ki whangarei extraordinary, whangarei takiwa nui, rāpere te kurumā whā, e Painga Whawha 2022. Welcome to our council meeting for Thursday the 14th of April. A very warm welcome. We are hoping that Councillor Peters is joining us, but hopefully she will be. I'm actually going to ask Councillor Benny to open our meeting with karakia.
Thank you. Very short and sharp karakia, to the point. Ngā mihi o te rā, ki te whānau e hui hui nei, kia tau ti rangamara, kia whakatapua tātou, mina mea, e whakapono ana tātou, haumea hui e tātou. Greetings of the day to the whānau gathered here. Let peace be with us, and may we respect each other and what we believe.
Kia ora, Councillor Benny. So we will note the apology from Councillor Peters. Can I have somebody move that that's accepted? Councillor Innes and Councillor Connor. Those in favour, aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Councillors, just some housekeeping matters. You will have received the documentation, which is the supplementary agenda. So if I can just check that we are all looking at the same document as the supplementary, which has, if you look inside the front cover, it has 4.1, 4.1.1 and then 5.1. So it's important that we're looking at the same document because this does have the updated statement of proposal. Thank you. Can I just check that everybody has that? I'm going to commence the meeting. Karen's bringing
That's the first one that you need recommendation, which is on the
Thank you. I apologise, everybody. I do just want to make sure that we're all looking at the fair enough correct information. Councillors, just to add to the confusion, I'm sure you love this. Excellent. So in the original council agenda, don't throw that one away, that has the recommendations that we will be asking to move in second. The supplementary agenda includes information which includes the list of changes that have been made to the statement of proposal. I'm getting a few nods, and that's a real big advantage. Thanks. We're all on the same pages, multiple pages. So, councillors, item 4.1, we have recommendations on page 1 of the original agenda. Do I have a mover for the recommendations? Councillor Martin is moving and Councillor Reid is seconding. Councillor Martin, would you wish to read out your recommendation, your motion?
Probably easier if you do with my broken voice.
I'm happy to read the motion for you. That Council 1 resolves to consult formally by way of a special consultative procedure under Part 6 of the Local Government Act 2002 on A, should Council determine a proposed location for a future alternative site to the current airport at Onorahi, and B, if it should, which of the three preferred options for a future airport, namely Site 9, Site 6 and Site 24A, would be most appropriate? Or C, should it take no action and make no determination on a proposed location? Item 2 is that Council adopts Attachment 1, Whangarei Airport Location Study Statement of Proposal as amended, as a statement of proposal for that consultation. 3, resolves to undertake consultation on the statement of proposal between the 20th of April and 25th of May 2022. And 4, authorises the Chief Executive to make any necessary minor drafting, administrative, typographical or presentation corrections to the statement of proposal prior to printing and distribution or consultation. Councillor Martin.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that. I'm getting a throat problem. This is something that's been worked on for a very long time, with the Onoraki Airport not suitable, or may become unsuitable for the length of the runway and other issues. So we've been looking to ensure that we will have an airport going into the future. And this is just the way of asking the community, after the exhaustive looking at all of the sites that have been proposed around Whangarei, and we're now at a position where we consult with the people of the community to make sure that they are comfortable and happy with where we're headed. So it's just another stage in the process. So I look forward to having a consultation with the people.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Any further discussion? Councillor Murphy.
Just a question. I think our statement of proposal, the document is very good, very easy to understand, but the information, because there is so much technical information, what we've laid out about what we know and potential issues is quite basic. So I'm just wondering if the community do have technical questions or would seek more information about some of those things that are raised, where would they come to and who would it be best to direct those questions to?
Thank you for that question, Councillor Murphy. I see Anne is on the phone.
On Wednesday, should this motion be passed, this document and another map which shows more detail of the flight path or potential flight paths will be going onto our website. We have briefed a couple of staff down at customer services in the call centre to understand more about the situation than the rest do. They will be answering questions and triaging calls there, which will then be directed to me, potentially to Fraser and to Simon Weston, who will be back before too long. So at the moment, that's the information we have. We don't have a lot more written information for the public at all, just some slightly more detailed things.
Right, okay, thank you.
Councillor Murphy. Councillor Cockburn.
Madam Chair, is there a chance that we'll be doing some public meetings for within these areas?
Thank you for that
So,
question.
Madam Chair, yes, we are having a public meeting for Pauline Days. We're having speak to the team at one of our information events. We're having one at 4:30 on Monday the 2nd of May at Ruakaka Recreation Centre. We're having another one 4:30 to 6:30 on Thursday the 5th of May, and we're having another one in town, because of course this doesn't just affect people in those localities, and that we're holding here at the Kappa Suite between 4:30 and 6:30 p.m. Now, this information is in the updated version of the document, but the document still will be having a few tweaks between now and Wednesday when it goes live. Just getting some typos, paginations, things like that tidied up. This information that's in here will all be on the website, including the meeting locations, times and dates.
Thank you, Anne. Councillor Connor.
Question first, just kind of along the lines of those. If community asks staff to come and hold another meeting at another location, will that be possible?
Absolutely.
Cool, that's fantastic. And yeah, there was a couple of little typos within the certain Manau, as in
Absolutely.
Yes.
If you do have changes to make to this, please get them to me today. There are changes in here which we've noted but not yet made, and that's because when you've got 13 or more people, we need to make little changes. We want to get them all assembled so we've got them all together. So if you want to point anything out to me after the meeting, more than happy to take your feedback and ensure that those changes are made to the document.
A couple of other, not necessarily for you, so thank you very much. Just on this, obviously the community has heard a lot about this, and it's great to see so many members of the public in the stands today that have come along from the areas that could potentially be affected. Within this, I can see that it's quite based on topography and whatnot, which is within one of the reasons for it, and that's one of the reasons we explained, was that the turning into the Onerahi Airport was one of the reasons that it's no longer as suitable as it was. I thought that would be one point that would potentially be another explainer as to why the airport is no longer suitable, aside from the runway length. But also, one of the constant questions that always comes up that is always questioning of the Ruakongata site, specifically sites, is the fog that is in the area, and I don't see that addressed within the document, and I do foresee that us getting a lot of statements on that, whilst I think reassurance, hopefully within the information that might go out, might allow for how it's come to that decision, or give some allowance as to what the standards are that we actually can be utilized. Ensuring also that, I've also seen comments of making sure we engage with the mana whenua in the locations that they will be affected, whilst also acknowledging the rest of the area around, just for those who have a lot more passion for their specific home location. We need to make sure we are, and we're doing a lot better, but we do need to make sure we work with them too. It's a significant thing, and this decision allows us to hear from the community, hear from the public what they want, and this is the beginning of the public process of it rather than what has been up to this time. So ensuring that as many people as possible provide feedback, provide their concerns so that they can be addressed is imperative. So I look forward to hearing back from the public in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Connor. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Your Worship. Fog is a universal phenomenon, and just as a matter of interest and annoyance, I've had a number of occasions where I've been at Onerahi. Once we even taxied to the end of the runway and fog blew in from the harbour. So, where there's fog, there's fog. We're going to get it. We need to work alongside and with the CAA and Air New Zealand in our deliberations on this, simply because Onerahi will become too small. Pilots are not exactly thrilled with landing there now, and with bigger aircraft landing, more passengers, we need to future-proof our service exit Auckland. If we don't, we are going to get left behind, and Kerikeri will take over that role as the main airport. So these are things we all need to consider and take into account in our thinking. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Councillor Innes.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to really say that this is one of the longer term planning decisions that Council has to make. It's future-proofing the future for Whangarei. And part of that is our role as a district within a region. And with the high growth that we have, we've got one of the highest growths within New Zealand, and that obviously is affected by Aucklanders moving north. And so we've gone through a long process of looking at sites, and And we've come down to 3 sites, and there's a lot of documentation on that. So now we're involved with the RMA, or Resource Management Act process. And part of that really requires us to look at options. And those options that we're looking at are 3 options. And it's one that going out to the community to get their feedback. And it's quite a exhaustive exercise, I think, in terms of when we look at the work that's been done and also the statement of proposal that's before the community and for discussion. So I'm looking forward to that discussion. I know that we'll have hearings in this chamber on the 9th, and also we'll have deliberations on the 21st and a decision on the 30th. So it'll be with interest that I see the submissions that come through, taking into account the information that we have in front of us. Thank you, Your Worship.
To expand to the 30th of June.
June.
Councillor Cockerilla.
Through Madam Chair, just another question, just for clarification purposes here. The 3 sites, have they had individually had hapu engagement in each site, or is this part of the consultation process that we're going through now?
Fraser, would you be able to expand?
Just to respond to that question, throughout the process there's been in place a Mana Whenua advisory group, which has been based on members that have been nominated by Te Kareria, and they have covered the district as a whole. It's always been the intention that once these 3 preferred sites have been publicly identified, then more focused engagement with hapu in those areas would take place, and there's work being undertaken at the moment to get to that point and to start setting up meetings with those more focused, usually based around the MRI. So we're looking to get that work underway at the moment.
It hasn't happened yet, but will.
No.
Excellent.
That's correct. But that's always been the intent.
Thanks, Fraser. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, I had a question earlier, but that this is a really important part of the process, because 2 of the sites being in the Hikurangi Coastal Ward, the potential, for the impact on that community it can't be understated. It's, the impact will be huge, it will change. If we decide to go ahead and build a new airport, it will completely change the way the community live their lives today. So I just wanted to raise the fact there that Councillor Innes talked about 3 options. I just wanted to highlight that there is option 4 there, which is one of the options. And I guess I just wanted to say, I've had lots of people contacting me just talking about the fact that in 10 to 15 years, technology may have changed so that we possibly will not need a longer runway, and potentially Onerahi may still be able to be used as an airport. So I just wanted to just say that I think at this stage we do really need to keep, obviously our minds open. We're going up for consultation. Let's see what the community has to say. Thank you very much.
Councillor Murphy. Councillor Cutler.
Me. Councillor Murphy said it all, really. Well, first of all, I did want to congratulate the staff on the document. I think it's a really, really clear document. I've been very impressed. Only done 2.5 times. But I think it's very well written and very clear and very easy for people to understand. So I'm hoping that we will get good feedback. And just sort of shadowing what others have said, I've found this decision one of the biggest and probably most difficult that this council's had to make in my terms here. Like Councillor Murphy, and I think possibly Your Worship, I really hope that in 10 to 15 years we will have planes that just take off immediately from up and off they go, and that perhaps we don't need to look at a new airport, because in many ways the Onerahi Airport is well placed. I do accept it's on a peninsula and and I guess it's what you get used to too. But equally, when you look at the other options, there are, and I've found this really hard, because if you look at a southern option, you risk losing people who just drive to Auckland, because why would you drive to the airport and then, an hour and a half later in Auckland? If you go with a northern option, you risk, as Councillor Reid pointed out, the impact of Kerikeri and the likelihood of visitors, in particular tourists, just going directly to Kerikeri and bypassing Whangarei yet again. Which is why I keep coming back to Onarahi, I think, being a really option, it is an option 4, and it's one that I think needs to still be in the mix, given where we may be going in the future. But equally, I also accept we do need to look at other options. So I really hope that the community does think really, really deeply about this issue, because whichever one we choose, there are going to be some, if you like, negative consequences, and it's really trying to balance those out.
Thank you, Councillor Cuthbert. Councillor Golalli.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I was just going to, as well, after Trish and Councillor Cuthbert and Councillor Murphy, we sort of see a lot of statements in this brochure, to prepare the district in case, or it may not be needed. So, playing devil's advocate a little bit, and I'm sort of aware of the last huge submission and consultation we underwent a few months ago. Should we have an overwhelming negative impact of these consultations, what weight does that have for any decision that we make? So if we get, we have 80% of submissions that are completely against all 3 options. I'm just interested in that feedback where, we ask the community for consultation on what they think, and they've generally said, no, we don't want this. So I'm just sort of wondering what weight that carries in making a decision.
That is a really valid question to raise, and those will be addressed through not only the hearings, but then the issues and options that are brought forward and our deliberations. It is a really important step that we go to the community to discuss with them what our options are, and that is the purpose of this consultation. That is the very reason why we are going to the community. So, the final decision as to whether or not we do select a preferred option or not is to be after the consultation process. Okay. Good question. Thank you. Councillor Dean.
Thank you, Worship. I'm just so thankful that we have finally got to this stage in the process after so many years and so much deep research that has been undertaken. It is really satisfying to now be able to go to the community and put aside the speculation, the rumours, and actually go out with something concrete that everybody can understand and assess from their own perspective. With respect to option 4, I absolutely accept that this is a hugely disruptive process in any of the areas all of the areas that are being considered for the airport. But in my mind, option 4 actually isn't an option. We can't have a city without an airport. If we don't have the new technology that allows Councillor Cutforth's planes to take off horizontally, vertically. Horizontally we'll wind up in the river.
Parallelly.
If we don't have that new technology, we have to have somewhere that planes can land, or that people can depart from Whangarei to places further afield. And to my thinking, we need to identify an area that can be designated for the airport, so that we're future-proofed whatever comes forward. It's pretty much the same as our drinking water, our sewage disposal. If we hadn't been looking out 30, 40, 50 years ahead, we wouldn't have the dams and the sewage plants that we have now. And to my way of thinking, the airport is simply another factor in that same process. So I do hope that people will give it the due consideration that's needed and not get overwhelmed by the disruption that you could foresee.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Councillor Benny.
Yeah, so I fully support the consultation and I'm sure we will have, as of last night, received a number of phone calls concerning this. A lot of public believe that this is imminent and we're about to move on this. So this gives some certainty into the process. And I think it needs to be accentuated that there is several years of work should this need to go ahead. So I think the document's really clear. I know there will be a lot of feedback on this, and I really look forward to the consultation. And I believe there are 4 options, and it'll be really interesting to see where we go on that. So full support.
Councillor Connor.
Question. As with concerns raised with the previous consultation, within the feedback that we will be providing, obviously, which will then go out to the public, will we be once again hiding contact details? Because this will be quite a interesting development as it goes through. Obviously, it'll be required for us to have those contact details, but when the documents are out for public, will they be blacked out as we have done in the previous ones, or?
You're talking about the submissions when
Yes.
people, yes, it's a question for our standard practice, our chief executive
Is
said.
that? Cool.
Good. Thank you for that. Councillor Reid, you have spoken.
Just a clarification, Your Worship. My good friend Tricia over there said, referring to people not flying to Kerikeri from Whangarei, they would drive because the airport was that much closer. That was not the intent of my statement.
Okay, that's another question. So, Councillor Cox.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Fully in support of the motion. I think it's we're at a really good stage. One thing we haven't got in the document going out is we've got 3 options, sure, but it's one of the requirements of the Resource Management Act, or under clause 23, I think it is, that we've got to show alternatives and options, and that's basically the work that all this stuff's based on. And under the options, we started from 28 sites, we're down to 3, and now we've got to get to basically a business case and say which one stacks up the best. But all the technical work's been done through our consultant Fraser here, and they've done all the technical aspects, looking at the flight capabilities, the assessments, does it suit aviation requirements, etc. So we're in a really good space. And just for us around the table, 30 years goes pretty quick and 20 years goes faster. And so 30 years ago, we had 64,000 people in our district. We're up to over 100,000. And this is a requirement to look ahead for growth. And we're well positioned, and I congratulate our council for being really proactive in going after this. So, well done.
Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. I echo a lot of what has been said, so I will not elaborate. Great detail in the document. Thank you very much to those who have prepared it. As Councillor Hulse has said, as a growing city, it is timely that we look at our options and that we plan ahead, build resilience into the future, and try to also ensure that we are going to meet the demands that the growing population will require from us. So absolutely support going to consultation. I myself have often wished for vertical takeoff at various times, but never achieved it, but it could come in the future, so thank you very much.
Thank you for a special cheer. Councillors, I will be supporting the motion today. When we're talking about options, we also had the option of not undertaking any further consultation for the future proofing, and the staff recommendation was to go to this next stage. So in all of our options, we were including the fact that we could have put a stop to it today. I don't think there's any appetite for that, and I do believe that the options that have been presented, as has been spoken of before, from the multiple sites that were identified as potential, they've been ruled out for various reasons. These are the 3 sites plus Onrahi, where we are going to our community. One comment I would like to make about the document is, and I would hope that it's a relatively minor thing to be able to do, is in our options to actually number the options on pages of them. We've got the Muruntanga West and Ruatangata. So it would be good to have option 1, Ruatangata West, option 2, Ruatangata, option 3, Te Whakau Whenua, and option 4, Onerahi. And we'd like them in those, but we'll stick with 1 3 Point and Onerahi. So the other point that has also been spoken of, the timeline. And when you look at the consultation document, it does include 2 pages of the timeline starting back in 2014. I'm sure it's probably thought of prior to that, but that's when we formally kicked off the start of this process. And at the end of it, as Councillor Green had also mentioned, that several years of work would be needed to design ownership models for the operation, etc. There's an awful lot of work that would need to go in once, if we choose a preferred option, and the tremendous amount of work that would be going in consultation with our community. So I think everybody has spoken. I'll go back to Councillor Martin for your right reply. I will put the motion. Those in favour, aye. Aye. Against? I believe that's unanimous. Thank you. Councillors, item 5.1, requisition is on page 20, it depends which agenda item it is. I'm looking at page 27. Requisition for extraordinary council meeting to address the proposed Wellington development. You will note that a request was made by councillors to call an extraordinary meeting of council to address the proposed Wellington development. In accordance with standing orders, we have met that request and it's on the agenda today. So I will hand over to the people who have put this motion.
Your Worship, in light of the information which has turned up yesterday, I would like to move that we suspend Standing Orders 9.1, which requires material to be provided at least 2 days before the meeting. This is to allow the materials to be introduced to inform and have a discussion take place. Again, this information was only made available to us yesterday, which I think will help out with our discussion and which also will help out with whatever goes forward.
So, councillors, we've had a motion that we suspend Standing Order 9.10.
9.10, sorry.
9.10. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Holster seconded. Councillors, for that to succeed, there needs to be a 75% vote. With 13 people in the meeting, that requires 10 people to vote in favour of that for it to succeed. So I will call for a division when I put that motion. I will put the motion. Those in favour, please raise your hands.
Councillors Golightly, Cockerello, Eni, Cooper, Hulse and Innes.
Those against?
Councillors Cutforth, Deeping, Martin, Reid, Murphy, Connor and Her Worship the Mayor.
That's definitely not 10. So, Councillor Cockerello, the reason I voted against that is I do strongly believe that we need to follow appropriate standing orders, and the information, to receive information in a forum like this is a disadvantage to all of us. So that's why I voted against that. So, councillors, discussion. Well, we've met your needs, we'll close the meeting.
Well, Madam Chair, I think the most important thing was actually allowing our councillors to actually have a look at the information so they can actually make a decision about going forward with the project. Look, it's one thing that we've been put into the situation by the government. It's another thing to have this discussion without the actual information being tabled. Because we have been put into this situation by the government, and the developers have come back with a proposal which appears to be a lot less cost. However, we need to have the discussion to say whether we want to actually investigate it further. But I understand, Your Worship, that there has been a letter being sent from our staff to encourage that what do you call it? Due diligence to happen by the party So I would like to know how that's progressing. Again, pointing out the fact that we've only really had a week to go through this stuff, to actually find out the information, to actually get this information, and to actually process this discussion. So I'm more interested to see how far we've actually got along, and if we have actually got along, and what sort of discussions have been taking place.
There's a couple of points I want clarification from you first, please. You mentioned that council had been approached by government. Have you any evidence of that?
Sorry, Your Worship, I refer to the proposal which has been put forward to the NECT, which has then put a request through to council. That's how I was referring to it. My apologies for getting it wrong in that respect.
Do you have anybody from the trust available to respond to that? Because that is their... I think if we were asking for information from the Northern Event Centre Trust, which is the trust you're speaking of, our council control organisation, then we would have needed to have that request so that we could respond to that. And this is, you were talking about a discussion about a project that is not a council project, so I'm not quite sure how we can help you with that, unless Rob's got any information. Do you have anything that can respond to Councillor Popolo's question?
Only, Your Worship, that I received the request on, I think, the 6th of April from the Event Centre Trust, and they wanted an urgent response. I wrote back to them on the 8th. I haven't heard anything since then from them. Well, nothing official, sorry.
So does that mean due diligence is in the process of being done?
I can't speak on behalf of the Trust, but I conveyed Council's desire that they do respond to what I've given to them, so that'll be up to them.
Yeah, so again, similar to the airport, there is a whole heap of fear out there, and it stems from the previous proposal regarding Oruku, which divided this council and divided the city. And I just think we need, I'm going to recap briefly that, so the prior proposal regarding Oruku was put out for public consultation. As a result of that public consultation, there was a good number of submissions opposing that development, and predominantly the opposition was for the council to underwrite the building of the event centre. There was some submissions regarding other things, but predominantly the submissions were against council underwriting the build of that building. That was taken away by the developers. They approached a number of councillors last week. In the interest of openness and honesty, Councillor Hulse and 6 others, I know there was, Councillor Golite was late signing it, but have submitted, have put a notice of motion in to bring this back into the council for discussion. Everything was done, and it is our intention that the proposal be made public, and that we look at this new proposal as a new proposal. This is an entirely new proposal that does not require council to underwrite the building of the event centre. So I hope that we can support that, to look at this, to do due diligence into whether this is significantly a new project and how it fits with our council, and whether we will support it or not. And that's all we are asking. And we are doing this in openness, and today it was deliberately open that there is some fear that we're doing this behind closed doors. None of this is behind closed doors. The whole proposal will be released to the public today, and they will have the say.
This is a question. As councillors received an email about this proposal, and yet it was not provided to staff alongside this agenda item, why was that not put alongside, especially if it's intended to be released to the public today, to not allow us to have a proper discussion about this due to the potential of business confidentiality or openness, because that is what it is about. If it is, that's where I've come into this, ensuring that the public are aware of what actually is happening or what this discussion may be, because it's now raised, it's inflamed people's memories. Why was the information not provided within this question to staff? Can anybody, whether it be the 6 or...
I can't respond
Madam
to...
Chair, I responded to that at the beginning of the meeting when I said that some information had only just been handed to all of us yesterday.
Okay. We had a week ago an email sent out to us which has led to this discussion to allow us to get this on the thing. That's what I mean, not the information that we received yesterday. So, if we received information a week ago, or whichever gave you time to be able to get this into staff, to be able to get this on the agenda now, because it needed time, why was that not provided to staff who deal with confidentiality, who deal with all the processes? Why was that not put forward? And then whether we have a confidential meeting or an open public meeting, we're now stuck in this situation where we don't exactly know what can be spoken of or not. So why was that information not provided to staff to work alongside whatever interaction we have with this?
I would say in response to that, our staff have done exactly as they were asked to requisition the meeting. That's all that we were asked to do.
I'm not asking the question, is that, I understand that, but why was that information not provided with that or provided prior to it to work with it? But
yeah, I can't answer that. Councillor Golightly.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to speak as well as for Councillor Benny. And I think for me, and I'm just talking about personally, about how when we came into this sort of information that, I started thinking about when we first came up on Oruku, and it feels like years ago, and it probably is years ago, and we loved it. And we carried it on, and we were committed, and we were prepared to go the extra mile, and we did. We absolutely did, and then we went to public consultation, and we all know how that happened, and that was open, it was transparent, and that's fine. But for me, there's now a new, even though it's still Oruku, there's something new about it. There's something still exciting about it, that there is a lot less cost. There's so many more differences of the pathway that I feel as an elected member have a duty to bring up again and find out what it is, because I mean, it's such an exciting development for our community. It was hard to let it go. And I just don't think we're doing anybody any justice by just saying, oh no, well, that's the old one, let's just throw it out because, what happened before, when I just feel that we need to give it another go. And that's purely how I have seen this come forward. And like Councillor Benny said, it is transparent, it is open, we're not behind the doors, we're not anything. We're just sort of thinking, they've come to us, let's have a look at it.
Councillor Golightly, Councillor Cooper.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Like Councillor Benny, I think it is good to perhaps look back and see how it is that we're in this position today, because on the face of it, it does seem a little bit odd, doesn't it? However, I think it's worth remembering that we as a district plan for the future, and the airport is a classic example, and we put out our district plans and our city plans, and within those plans are guidelines for people who would look to build the future of the town, look to be involved in the progress of Whangarei district. And that is what has happened in this case. People have looked, businessmen, a group of businessmen, and you have to give them credit, they've looked at our long-term plan, they have seen that there is a desire in the long-term plan that has been adopted by this council, by the people in this chamber, to have a conference centre. And they have come up with a plan. Now, there was a previous plan, it was called the same name, but now this is a new plan, and I think we must very much take that point on board. It is a new plan, happens to have the same name. You may say it's unfortunate that it happens to have the same name, but it is a new plan. And that new plan incorporates feedback that was received from the consultation of the previous plan. So let's be quite clear. There is a plan, it fits in, there is a project being put forward by the business people in the community. It has attracted funding from the government of $60 million. $60 million that we didn't get through the Provincial Growth Fund, $60 million that we didn't get through shovel-ready projects except for this money. Now, what they have done is they have de-risked it from the council's perspective. So those things that cause concern, they caused concern for all of us last time. One of them, and a major one, was the potential cost overruns of building that conference centre. That has been taken away. And they've done that through some clever engineering and clever design. Good on them. What we are asking today, and the reason why this meeting has been called, is because we would like to send the signal to central government that yes, we are open for business as a council and a community. Yes, we are looking to the future. Yes, we stand by our plans that we've put out there. And yes, we want to go forward. So why not look at the due diligence, and then we will see and make a final decision. All we're asking for today is to discuss it, bring it out to the open, as Councillor Benny has said, because there is this history out there, and we don't deny that history. We do not deny that the consultation happened. But this is a new project, and let's do the due diligence. Now, we are fortunate that in intervening time, we have had a trust with some very skilled people put in place to run the stadium. Now, one of the concerns was that the stadium would be in competition with the conference centre. So why not let those people who are skilled people, professional directors, and they're running the stadium, why not let them do some due diligence on what the conference centre would mean for them, does it fit with their business, and is it worthwhile taking it further? And then they can come back and talk to us as councillors, and we can make a decision as to whether or not we think it's a good decision. Perhaps, I guess in hindsight, it might have been a good idea, and maybe it's something we can look at as a council in the future, as to whether or not we come up with a entity, a bit like that commercial decisions can be looked at and understood without having to come through the rigmarole of the chamber, and they bring a recommendation to the chamber. Something a little bit like the Far North Holdings have, which brings a return back to the ratepayers as well. So these are the sort of things that we've got to be open to. These are the sort of things we've got to look at as a council. And we must send the signal to central government that we want to work with them, and we want to take advantage of what they have to offer, and I think that's very important. And if we do not open ourselves to due diligence today, then we are sending a signal that we are not interested, and we are not open for business, and we are not forward-looking. Thank you.
Councillor Murphy.
Thank you. Well, just a couple of questions about NET, because in March we just signed off the Northern Event Centre Trust Statement of Proposal. So I'm just wondering, when you read through that, it's all about operating that venue, etc. So what's the process about modifying a statement of intent? Because I'm not sure, what is allowed under their mandate. So we've talked about NET doing a feasibility study. Are they doing that in-house, or are they paying for that? And what are the rules around, their statement of intent, which is council approved because they are a council CCO? So I'm just trying to understand a bit more about that process. Anyone can help me?
My initial response is that the statement of intent was for the coming financial year. It's unlikely that it would impact, if the project proceeds, it would be unlikely to impact on their financial year for June through to July through to June next year, would be my understanding. Again, it's a little unknown, but if they were, I would imagine that the trustee, they would check whether or not under their trustee they could look at operating another facility, but you'll also recall that our intent for the trustee makeup was that the Seminole Stadium be operated more on a commercial basis. So I would imagine that they'll be looking at whether or not the proposal that they're doing due diligence on fits the criteria for a return for them. But again, it's a bit of speculation. Councillor Cutforth.
Thank you, Worship. There's two issues here for me, and one is, and the most important one really, I think, is the process, and the second one is actually the project, the Oruku project. But I noted Councillor Cooper used the airport when he started. He used the airport as a passive example of how we go about things, and I think indeed the airport is a really good example of the meticulous planning, the detail, the amount of discussion, all the discussion that this council has held around that project compared to the process that has been used now today on this topic. So I've read the Chief Executive's letter to NET, and I have not read anything else that has come to me on email from an external source, nothing to do with council. To me, if we're going to discuss something in a formal council meeting, we discuss reports that are brought by our staff. If we open ourselves up to discussing every email that every councillor gets on any matter at extraordinary council meetings, that's basically, as far as I can see, the end of the local government democratic process. And so I haven't actually looked at the stuff that's come in the last, day, 2 days. I came to an extraordinary council meeting to find out why we're having an extraordinary council meeting. Because I've seen nothing formal through this council. So I just find the whole thing completely irresponsible. I think there are people in this room who have to really, really consider whether they have a conflict of interest in the project that they actually are wanting us to discuss. And if we're going to talk about the project, then, I'm completely comfortable with the private sector going off and doing that particular build. But don't come to council, and certainly don't come through the back door. And don't tell me it's not the back door, because it is the back door, to try and get some sort of council involvement in it through sort of this creeping incrementalism, really. And whether people like it or not, I feel real shades of the Hundertwasser process. And that's why I say that is because the Hundertwasser came to this council and it was thrown out. And then it came back as a new project. And the new project element was it didn't have council funding. Actually, the rest of the project was pretty much the same. Same location, same type of building, everything. And that's what I see with this project. It's still a conference centre, it's still in the same location. Yes, it's been scaled back, but actually it's the same project. And no matter how many people tell me or keep saying that it's a new project, I mean, you can keep telling untruths and hope that if you tell them enough times they'll become true.
Point of order.
I can say lies, I said untruths, exaggerations.
Point of order.
Councillor Cooper, we actually had no motion for me to be able to rule on whether a point of order, so I think I'll just allow discussion, which is what was requested.
You're happy to allow,
Councillor Cooper, Councillor Cutforth is speaking.
Yeah. Exaggerations.
Yeah. Thank you.
Whatever word you choose to use, you know what I'm saying. It's the same people behind it, to a greater or lesser extent. It's very similar arguments, and I think that people around this table who are, well, fine, I'm leaving, people around this table who intend to stay on at council are really risking complete wrath of the general public about this proposal. Because while you can say it's new and it's different and it's not this and it's not that, the general public aren't interested in that level of detail. And as Councillor Conniff has pointed out, they're going to see this council's back involved in the conference centre. We rejected it. What does that say about these people? And I think good on the general public if that's the view they take. I've had more phone calls in the last 2 days about this issue than I've had about anything. People are furious. So I don't really want to get into too much discussion about the project. I've said enough. I'm saying it really strongly because I'm saying it as I feel it. I don't believe the 60 million we were told the 60 million was going to disappear months ago. The 60 million is gone. Suddenly it's back on the table. I just think the whole thing has been handled completely wrongly. And I think that people are facing political annihilation if they think that they can go ahead with this project. So I'll leave it at that before I just go on any further.
Councillor Innes.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll really pick up on Councillor Cutforth's comments in relation to process. And I think as a council, we've really found ourselves searching. And a lot of that searching has been the Provincial Growth Fund and the Shovel Ready funding. It's funding that's come to our district that in a way that isn't the normal way that we plan for our projects and funding. For example, with PGF, it couldn't be a project within our long-term plan. And yet not to pick up that funding compromised the district in terms of being able to attract funding. And yet we have a look at our neighbours who are able to attract funding, substantial funding in the far north from PGF. So here we have a project, and that project has been one that is different in terms of dealing with process. And that's why we're sitting here today. Because when we had a look at it, I didn't know that funding was still available. I don't think any of us knew that funding was still available. And then suddenly we're told that it's still available and it's a new project. So from my perspective, you know, I appreciate Councillor Cutforth's comments in terms of Hundertwasser and the change in process there that actually led to the Hundertwasser being built. So I just think here we have a situation that if we want to seize the money as a district, I'm not talking about as a council, as a district, then there's $59 million or $60 million there. So unfortunately, it's compromised us in terms of our normal process of planning for projects. So we have to be reactive and we have to be opportune. We're being opportune because we're listening to a new proposal. And when I have a look at the detail of it, it's the business community that's there. It's government more taking risk. It's de-risked for council. In fact, in terms of council, in terms of the capital build, it's something totally different. So it's a new project. The only thing the same about it in that context is its name, potential of $59 million. Council was going to build it before, it's not now, under this proposal. And there's due diligence. So all we're saying today is, let's get it on the table, let's have a look at it. And there's going to be due diligence undertaken. We aren't an essential part of it anymore. And I'll look forward to that due diligence coming through in terms of what would be our exposure. So from that perspective, I'm very much wanting to see it kept alive and say to central government, well, we know that your planning processes that you've inflicted on us in terms of shovel-ready projects were actually brought about by COVID, we have faith to try and pursue this until it's proven in terms of due diligence that it's not possible for council to be involved in it. And it's that type of discussion that I think the community needs to be aware of. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Murphy, did you have a question?
I haven't spoken yet. I asked a question earlier. Oh, well, so I'll just speak once, I won't speak again. But I was just going to say, Councillor Innes speaks about an opportunity, that's true. And I think none of us are disputing that if this was an agreement purely between CIP and the developer, that would be one thing. But I think the thing that is very unclear is that as a council we don't have anything on paper from CIP about what they would actually require us to sign up to. So I think the fact is that the project might have been downscaled and it might be different, might be a new project. But I think the point is that as soon as you involve NECT, the Northern Event Centre Trust, which is a council CCO, then you actually are, you cannot avoid it. You are therefore involving council. So that is what makes it very, the process very murky. Because I think, wonderful, like I love the Hundertwasser. I love it. And I think if the business community in partnership with government believe that a conference centre is, needed and feasible, then brilliant, build it. But because we've been through our whole LTP process and we heard very clearly, from our community about what they thought about the project, and it may have changed, I think we really have to be mindful of our processes. So we don't have a motion on the table. We don't have. I've seen the letter from our CE to NECT. I haven't seen the letter from NECT to the CE. I haven't seen a letter from the CIP outlining, the 60 million and what their expectations are and what they would be expecting council to agree to. So it is very, very hard to go forward at all.
Thanks, Councillor Murphy. Councillor Connor.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. Obviously for the ones who are dealing with this, is there any public costing publicly available costing that will be incurred by WDC? Can anybody answer that within this project?
Due diligence, you mean?
I don't know, is that going to cost us? Is there any cost to WDC right now with the process that's running or with the implementation of the building? Is there any public information about that?
I'm sorry.
That's why we're doing the due diligence.
We don't know.
So Councillor Connor, can I just check, you're asking whether or not there's been any council investment into looking at the information or?
No, from the proposal that has been seen by some, in that information, is there a noted cost that is publicly viewable that would be costed, that would cost WDC?
Cost of things, you want to say.
Through you, Madam Chair. There's not a hard and fast number, but in approximate terms, there is a request for a grant from council to NECT of the order of $10 million, and then a request for ongoing funding, which is unspecified.
Okay, thank you. And with obviously we have CIP projects that come through that are kind of ready to go kind of thing. These are then needing to be, not necessarily the specific project, but they're projects that then need to be maintained and kept up on of the already vast infrastructure that we already have to deal with, correct?
So the ongoing
maintenance of a project.
Depreciation, renewals for projects that have been funded.
So once we've had the funding and it's now in WDC's hands, there's a cost that we didn't have prior that we now have to maintain.
Yes, for any new infrastructure, yes.
The last question, when will there be information presented publicly on this, whether it be to staff or an outline for the public to be aware of what's actually happening?
You mean from the project proponents? Yes. Is anybody able to answer that?
Madam Chair.
Your Worship, that is the very information we tried to get into the meeting at the start of the meeting. Very information.
Councillor Hobbs.
And if Councillor Connor, read his correspondence.
Councillor Hobbs.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Connor asked when the information from the proponents would be made public. Does anybody in the room have the answer to that?
Madam Chair, I've just been informed that all of the stuff that's been sent to the councillors is actually on their website.
Excellent.
So, Your Worship, I can answer because Councillor Connor could have read it and he probably has read it, just playing the game here. It's 2.84 million commitment from Monterey Discount towards the upgrading of infrastructure as per the long-term plan. That is in the statement that Councillor Connor has got. And our CEO in his letter has already replied that he would look at that under the current system.
Is that consistent with what the information that NECT have been requested? No?
Madam Chair.
Sorry.
The NECT didn't, that was one of the things they asked for, but there were other things as well. So it's inconsistent with what they asked for, but yeah, it's really hard to work this out.
Yeah. Councillor Martin?
Yeah, well, I'm not opposed to the project as such. What I am opposed to is that we get a notice of motion without the staff knowing, without the mayor even knowing, or some of us others. And I find that extremely unfortunate. And then we don't have any other information to base a decision on. We had an infrastructure meeting this morning, a whole book, monthly reports, pictures and stories about our monthly report of what's happening in infrastructure. And we come here to go through this project again with nothing. And then we don't know whether the regional council are going to put that's a question I've been asking, are the regional council going to commit? How much are we going to have to commit? Are we going to cover the operational costs ongoing? And all of those kinds of things. And we do not know because we haven't been given any information. And I am not going to commit our ratepayers forever with commitments that we don't even know about yet. And it's all very well doing due diligence. It's not our project. It's not on council land. So why are we doing all this? I just find it, if we had the information and we knew what was happening and why, it would be a different story. But all we have is this notice of motion, not even, and a few signatures. That's my problem. It's just bizarre. I've never seen it before in all my years in council. This hasn't happened. We've had discussions, the mayor's been involved and the staff have been involved. It just seems odd to me, really odd. The whole process is wrong. And to compare it to the airport, when we've been going for 8 or 10 years, in dozens of meetings and visiting 30 sites all around Monterey and doing all the stuff, is quite bizarre. Quite bizarre.
Councillor Dean.
Thank you, and I will stand because I think this is really important. This process it's just been described as unfortunate. Personally, I find it discourteous. We have, in 2 days, we're suddenly given a declaration that somebody wants to discuss something in the chamber. I think what we've actually succeeded in doing is showing the community via our website that actually we're discussing something on which we have no information, and that's what I have, is no information. I have seen an email from a member of the public. I've also seen several emails on the opposite side, members of the public. Honestly, I don't think I have ever seen a project more intent on shooting itself in its public foot than this one. It had several iterations from the beginning: the Uruku project, the different project, the first project, which morphed into a number of different projects, started with needing $10 million from council, which had been set aside for our theatre, but this was going to be a conference centre which was really needed in order to get a 5-star hotel here. I still haven't seen any detail about the 5-star hotel. I'm looking forward to that. But the process, this could well be a good proposition. It could be a great project. I don't know, I haven't got any detail, but we're being asked by CIP, I assume, to confirm our interest in a project on which we have no information. Nobody knew that the fund, well, nobody in council, possibly a little group of commercial people, may have known that the CIP funding of $59 million was still available. Certainly nobody, as I am aware, in the chamber or in council staff knew that this money was still available. I mean, we were given, well, offered $60 million for a conference centre which had actually not been requested by the public in general, whereas most of the other districts were given funding for projects that were in their long-term plans, which their public had been asking for a very long time. What our public had been asking for was a theatre. And there went the money for the theatre, sideways. Now there is no theatre, I understand, in the current proposal. It is, what I've seen of it, it is quite different. But why, in heaven's name, couldn't we have got some detail so that we could have gone to the public with a feasible project instead of another something or other on the table which we have no understanding of, no information on? And I think Councillor Murphy is absolutely right. The minute that a council-controlled organisation is included as part of the deal, then council is, by association, included. At the moment that we show any letter of support, that's going to be a commitment by our ratepayers. And I don't think, I think Councillor Cuthbert is absolutely right, because we haven't gone out with this in a correct process where we can put some solid information out for public to consider, they are not going to be happy. So it's a really sad indictment on a project that is possibly a great asset to the district. And we shoot it in the foot before it even gets underway.
Thank you, Councillor Deming.
Just a question.
Councillor Pepper, question?
Thank you. We do lots of projects in the council. We build roads, we build civic centres.
Question?
Yes, I'll get there. Thank you. When we do those projects, we do due diligence of those projects. And when we do that due diligence, do we have all the answers before we start doing the due diligence normally? Or is that the point of doing the due diligence? So we get information to then populate our minds about what the actual projects ins and outs are.
I think that's a rhetorical question, Councillor Pepper.
Cheaply
Well, I don't think so. I think there seems to be confusion about due diligence here today.
No, there's confusion about private sector and public sector.
No, I don't think. No, I think we're asking to do due diligence, but people want to know everything about the project before we done.
Questions?
Okay, councillors, thank you. Through the chair, I still can't hear the question that you're asking, Councillor Pepper. You're asking whether or not projects that on council land for the benefit of our ratepayers go through a due diligence process. I would imagine for some, it does.
That's not the question, Your Worship. The question was, is the point of due diligence, doing due diligence to find out information so that we then can make an informed decision? Is that the point of due diligence?
Of a council project, of course it is.
Of any due diligence that we do? Yep.
Of a council project.
Question.
Councillor Reid.
Who authorised the due diligence to be done on behalf of council?
There is no, council is not
Does that kind of
doing
sound where
due
it's coming
diligence.
That's a very good question, Councillor.
Council did do $2 million worth of due diligence on the former project, but for this project, council is not performing due diligence. The request has been made to the Northland Event Centre Trust, which is a council-controlled organisation, but we don't know where that's at today.
Now I'd like to speak.
Yes, Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council-controlled organisations, by default, that makes the ratepayer liable for any shortcomings, loss of earning, depreciation costs, maintenance costs, and I am very, very worried about NECT having anything to do with this project, be it great or otherwise. Because sooner or later, council is going to be tied to that CCO commitment, which by default is going to tie our ratepayer to footing the bill, which could, who knows, hit $1.5 million a year. It could be less, it could be more. So I am not very happy with the way this is aiming at this stage.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Councillor Connaught, a question?
Just referring to Councillor Hols's comments before about the website being information. Which website?
Cockerello talked about the website.
No, Councillor Hols did. He said it's information is on the website. He can play.
Cockerello said that.
He said that.
Okay, whoever said it, which website? Because the Aruku Landing one is got old information, it has old photos,
Okay,
it's
can
not
we-
updated. So
thank you.
which website is this on?
Look for the new one.
Councillor Gomes.
Which one?
Thank you.
Aruku Landing.
Because a few people have spoken about the Hundavasa Arts Centre, and so my question is, we all know what happened there, and then the new proposal came and it was taken over by Hospital Trust. Did they not go to a CCO? It's basically I'm just sort of, I don't know, so
The
is
proposal
that
came,
what they did?
the proposal came from the community, but the Fundy Art Museum Trust were the people who constructed the Hundavasa building.
And they're a council-controlled organisation, so is this a similar thing?
Council Director.
The difference, yes, and Rob's just said, the difference is, of course, that the Northland Event Centre Trust would not be building or owning the facility. They have been asked to operate it, as opposed to...
So it wouldn't be liable for the overruns.
As opposed to what?
We're getting into speculation. Councillor Benny?
Yeah, just a quick question. So a number of councillors have stated they haven't received information on this project. Did they not receive that email that was sent to, I believe, all councillors?
I'm sure councillors have referred to the email that they received. Some people said they hadn't looked at it, but...
And just if I could, it's on Haruku's Facebook site as of half an hour ago.
The Facebook.
Quite quickly.
We should have finished the meeting.
Thank you, Your Worship. And, well, it's a bit hard to listen to some of that, and I just want to remind you, and I will remind you, a few facts of life about listening to what you're doing and what you're voting on. We've already achieved our purpose. The whole purpose of this meeting was to actually discuss something in the chamber, because everything in the past generally confidential, and we're the representatives of the ratepayers and our residents out there. We've been asked as a group to have a discussion in council about pushing forward with the due diligence. Our CEO has just informed the meeting that that's underway, because he wrote a turn letter to Net Trust to say they're underway with due diligence. So, but basically, first tick, we've already achieved the first goal. Second one is, why we didn't put anything in the notice, in the extraordinary meeting notice, was because of speculation. I cannot believe that you councillors speculate the way you do. Cannot believe it. Because one, the first proposal that got turned down with a massive rate increase and a bridge and all that, that is a Whangarei District Council project. Your own project that you'll now be rating so highly. That was run by our council. Our staff, our council, got turned down by all you people who are against this new proposal. Okay, so the first one is to make sure that we represent our public and the business people in our community. And we've got half our council saying yes, we want to make sure we listen to our public. And that is the main point. We're going to due diligence where other good people are going to check out their part of the project, and we're working to a timeline. It had to happen, we had to put an extraordinary meeting in to get a meeting to happen. Because if we'd asked our CEO and the mayor in the current situation, that would not have happened. So we've got our meeting, we're achieving what we wanted to do, the public's hearing this discussion, and all the public can judge council. All right? I am pretty sure, because I'm going to get on a few facts in a minute. We set up the new Northern Defence Centre Trust, and part of their pillars was to look for commercial involvement. That is one of the pillars that we passed less than 2 months ago. We okayed them, put directors in place, professional trustees in place to look at this. 2 accountants. And another one, a trustee, was worked for AT, Auckland, the tourism, Auckland, economic development in Auckland. They are looking to do the due diligence. We couldn't have got a better team to do it. That's all we wanted, was to go out and ask the public to give us a bit of time, give these people due diligence, and because our CEO has now confirmed that his net is looking at it, it'll come back to us to judge it. This is not about making a decision. This is just making sure that everyone in the room has the same information. Now, going back to what I said before, it amazes me that councils do not concentrate when they make decisions. Here's a classic point. Consultation document that we just released. Just released. Unbelievable. We went out last year with a 10-year plan. The 10-year plan, this is what we put initially as a consultation document. Advocating for future opportunity, advocating for future opportunities for the district. In that damn consultation document. And you don't want to do that. Unbelievable. Council document, communication. Now, this is what our people in the public need to hear. We're supporting our business community. We're supporting our residents to have a look at a prospect of picking up probably up to $59 million government subsidy. Surely you'd want to look at that. This morning, in our meeting, Greg said how well his meeting went this morning, all this. We're talking about all the attractions around the Loop Walkway. All the things that make Mongrey a really nice place to live. That is because future council said, yes, we're going to do this. Hunter Vale, opposition to Hunter Vale, sure. But doesn't it look great now with the new park and the rest of the town base? Look at the big picture. Don't be too scared to go for that big picture. This is on the Loop Walkway. The added value of this, possible hotel, apartments, everything we've said we want in Mongrey. Everything we want in Mongrey. Our business community pay a 4.5% differential on their properties. Surely you want to back your business community after coming through a COVID situation. Surely you want to back anyone in business who's brave enough to stick in there and fight it out to actually see if we can actually promote something on top of the Hunter Vale, draw more people, more attention to Whangarei. But I'm really disappointed when we do this, and in the very next meeting, council say, oh, why are we doing this? We stay if we want to take on the opportunities. Your worship, you should be supporting exactly what you put out in this document. So we've got our answer, our CEO said that we'll make sure now that we'll get our CEO to report back to council on the finding of the due diligence, and we'll be asking some hard questions to our CEO about it. Because the process was to get this discussed in this chamber, so we make a point. In the past, we get the leftovers. The last one was a council project that inflated the costs, and we all knew the costs were inflated. It is scuttled a project when you go out and say you're going to put the rates up so high. We have not said anything about the rates today because we don't know. That's because we kept the notice short, Councillor Connor, because we didn't want speculation. We didn't want it on Facebook. It's not our project. Our project was, information was released to all councillors yesterday, because that's a timeline these guys have been working to. A timeline that has secured or kept in place the prospects of us picking up a big subsidy for our district. Surely you'd look at that. All it is looking at that. We don't need a council resolution, because we've already got a commitment where our CEO's got the process underway, and we've got a copy of that letter. And then when it comes back here, we'll judge it. We'll judge our professional directors who will be listening to this conversation. And it must be very disappointing to those trustees you just put in place that you don't back them to do their job.
Absolutely.
You don't back them to do their due diligence on behalf of us. That is the very reason we set up an independent trust. The very reason I had to stand down as the former chairman of that trust to allow this to happen. It is set up so we can take opportunities and for them to go and seek outside money and secure outside funding. Exactly what we set them up to do. Now, at times you've got to grow up and act like adults. You know, we're out there backing our community. Absolutely backing our community on this. If you don't want to back the community, put your hands up now. Because that'll save a lot of time in a couple of weeks' time when it comes back to council. Thanks very much.
Councillor Halls. Councillor Fine, I would like to speak. Councillors? Thank you, Councillor Halls, for your impassioned plea. I totally support this council endorsing projects that bring economic development to our district. We have supported the hospital. That is a massive investment into our district. It's desperately required. We've thrown our support in behind it. In fact, the $60 million, at the time, I would prefer it goes to the hospital because that, to me, is our top priority. However, the proponents of this new project, I applaud them. Fantastic. Good on them for keeping the lines of communication open with Crown Infrastructure Partners, with $59 million potentially coming into a project that would reap the rewards for our district. Total support. The project itself, as has been noted, it's been highlighted in our documents that that's an area that's ripe for a conference and event centre, hotel, apartments, bingo. I'm all for it. I have read all of the documentation that I have received on this project, and this is all of it. I've printed it. The first I knew about it was on the 31st of March, where I was copied in by our Deputy Mayor to a letter that had been sent to the, from Ben Thompson, the Northland Development Corporation, to the Northland Event Centre. Then there were meetings held. It was on a day that I couldn't attend. We've had various iterations coming to and fro, NECT and CIP. And in these, it does, the $10 million was referred to, a $10 million from NECT on top of the approximately $20 million we have on the table for the land. And then a confirmation they were wanting, confirmation from the Northern Event Centre that they can finance operations and service the rent on the asset. Now clearly, the due diligence that that crew is doing will be able to just decide whether or not they can meet that criteria. It's important that they do that. It's up to them. They are a trust. So the documents just keep going on and on and on. We've got information to and from with the Northern Development Corporation. The really telling one for me, though, was the letter from the Northern Regional Council saying that they've carefully considered the opportunities presented. While there are numerous benefits to be involved, Council have determined it does not wish to participate as an investment partner. So the Northern Regional Council are out. It's fine. Hence, that was back in February. That's why they are coming to our council. For me, I totally support the project, and if they can secure it and it works for them, fabulous. The bit that really bothers me, and it's bothered others, is the way it was brought to this chamber. The inference is that our ratepayers will have involvement in this project without any formal request to our council. They have gone to our council-controlled organisation and had negotiations with them. If that due diligence proves worthy, then I'm sure our council-controlled organisation would come to us and say, we've been approached for a project, we want to pursue it. Can you support us in whatever way it is, with evidence, with documentation, with the options looked at, the proper process under the Local Government Act for decision making. We don't have that. So today, I fully support the Oruku Landing project. I think it's fabulous. They've worked hard with Tangata Whenua, they've worked hard with the designers, the architects, everybody about bringing a project that would benefit our district. What is wrong with this today is that you have brought it to this council with no information that we can have a future direction on. When our CCO come back after they've done their due diligence, if it stacks up and they support it, we would consider it with that information in our hands and all of the options presented to us. So that is my discussion on this project. I again reiterate, I commend the people who have been negotiating with government for investment into our district, and I thank them for that, and I wish them the very best. No further discussion, I will close the meeting. Thank you everybody for your attendance. Thank you to our technical people who've supported us with our live stream, and that is bang on 2:30. I will take a 5-minute break, please, because people have to set up for the next workshop. Thank you.